Vice President Kamala Harris and her top campaign staff speaking out at length for the first time since conceding the election to President-elect Donald Trump. And amid all the soul-searching to figure out where it all went wrong, it seems like they're in absolutely complete denial about what led to the vice president's defeat. Because across the board, the Harris team came off as a group that's very quick to point fingers and kind of reluctant to look in the mirror and accept that the blame may fall squarely on them. And that includes the candidate who addressed supporters last night on a video conference call for roughly 10 minutes, thanking them for donating more than $1 billion total to her campaign. And during her remarks, the vice president served up the kind of word salad for which she's drawn mockery in the past.
But I am proud of the race we ran. And your role in this was critical.
Yeah, Kamala got on there looking like a drunk grandma. And she didn't just raise $1 billion. Her campaign raised nearly $1.5 billion. The most ever in history. Now, most of that money came from billionaires and millionaires too. But they keep lying, acting like the money mostly came from the grassroots.
Get this, we raised an historic $1.4 billion, almost $1.5 billion from grassroots supporters alone. The most in presidential campaign history.
I'm not really sure what that means. And as for this supposed unprecedented accomplishments, can we face it? The Harris campaign didn't provide a great return on its $1 billion investment. Sure, Kamala Harris was put in a tough spot, right? By being thrust into the top spot on the ticket just over 3 months out. But the fact is, the vice president just couldn't connect with the swing voters that she needed to put her over the top. And a big part of it was the campaign's failure to communicate. And while part of that falls on a clearly imperfect messenger, there are a lot of other questions about how the message was distributed. You know, Kamala Harris was radio silent for roughly the first half of her campaign. And when she finally did give interviews, she mostly stayed away from the major networks and focused instead on podcasts and other more targeted media hits, such as the popular women's themed podcast Call Her Daddy. That was designed to reach her base, though, rather than independents. In an interview on Pod Save America yesterday, Harris campaign chair Jen O'Malley Dillon defended this preaching to the choir strategy.
We should have signaled more of our strategy early on about podcasts and who we were trying to reach. But we had a limited amount of time to reach the people we were trying to reach, and we were trying to go to them. But being up against a narrative that we weren't doing anything or we were afraid to have interviews is completely bull.
Is it really? I mean, as Harris herself noted, it was a 107-day campaign, and she didn't really talk to the media for the first 39 of them, And then she finally sat down for an interview with CNN in late August. But all the while, the Trump campaign was just bombarding the airwaves with ads defining her before she could really even define herself. So if you thought you were going to get some self-reflection from the vice president and her team, you really didn't get it. So are they in denial? Well, we got a great panel here to discuss that and other hot topics facing the Democrats. Right now, I am joined by Roma Daravi, former White House Deputy Director of Strategic Communications under Donald Trump, founder of Daravi Strategies, Lindy Lee, a Kamala Harris surrogate and a DNC National Finance Committee member, Nomiki Konste, former Bernie Sanders surrogate who served as a DNC Unity Commission member after the 2016 election, and David Paleologos, political pollster and the director of the Suffolk University Political Research Center. Thank you all for being here, especially on Thanksgiving Eve. Really appreciate it. Nomiki, I'm going to start with you. When you're listening to Jen O'Malley Dillon and these other top Harris campaign staffers, are they just fooling themselves here? You know, defending their media strategy? It didn't work.
You know, I want to give them a little room. Yes, the time period, 107 days, not the best situation. And they were fighting a machine. They were fighting a unified Republican Party. They were fighting Donald Trump, the most famous man in the world, who's been spreading his message for at least the last 8 years, but definitely the last 40 years. They were fighting super PACs and billions of dollars and a media landscape, digital and other media, that was really working against her.
Wait a damn minute. Wait, hold up.
She was fighting a machine. No, y'all not about to come in here and scam us again. This woman is up here attempting to redefine or rewrite the script that we all saw play out already. Kamala wasn't fighting no machine. The machine was fighting on behalf of Kamala. Remember the first 40 days and 40 nights? I talked about that. That lady was running from the media. She wouldn't fight anybody. Instead, she had mainstream media fighting for her. And listen, they fought for her around the clock, 24/7, all of them. ABC, CBS, NBC, MSNBC, CNN, all of them gave her 90% to 100% positive coverage. Every radio station, they had all of them on lock. Then George Soros went and bought 200 more of them. That's why you heard all of these ads and you heard all of these local personalities basically acting like they were a part of the campaign. If you look at the digital space, she had the Shade Room fighting for her. Roland Martin was fighting for her. You had all these groups of black men raising millions of dollars for her, running around talking about protecting her. And it was the black women who kicked it off first, raising millions of dollars for her. They went around bragging about this for weeks. This was all pushed out on the Jumbotron. She had the Breakfast Club in her pocket. Ricky Smiley, D.L. Hughley, Steve Harvey, all these people stumped for her. She 100% dominated black radio. And this lying witch up here is saying that Kamala had to fight against money from PACs? Nah, Kamala raised more money than any candidate in history. Her campaign alone raised almost $1.5 billion. She said it herself. Not only that, you had outside PACs ran by these groups like a workers' union headed up by this black woman right here, who said they raised $200 million on their own to support Kamala Harris with their own political PAC. So yeah, this lie that this manipulative flamingo is trying to put out right now is straight up crazy. She's obviously trying to cover for her thieving, scamming friends in the DNC because Kamala wasn't fighting no machine. She was the machine.
And she had, a little over 100 days to make her message known. And I think given what we know with the final results, it came down to a couple percentage. It wasn't enough. With that being said, we had some lessons in 2016 that we learned. You mentioned I was on this Unity Reform Commission. That was essentially a 2-year process to examine where the Democratic Party went wrong in wasting over $1 billion, lighting it on fire, and not knowing enough to go to a state like Wisconsin. Right. A lot of those lessons were learned, but the lessons that weren't were things like, having a Democratic Party that's a full-time party. Because if you have a DNC that is a full-time party, you are spreading that message every single day. You are going into every single community and you are talking to organizers, you're training organizers, you're training the next generation of leadership on your message.
And see, she's going the same route that you normally see Roland Martin, Angela Rye, and all them going. This Dean Bat Airhead chick is saying the lesson is the DNC should be full-time, meaning they should hire everyone and pay them all this money as permanent full-time employees and use those hours and manpower to teach or indoctrinate everyone at large with their messages. The same agenda that's obviously not in the best interest of Americans. Nah, she's not saying the problem is their lack of agenda or their failing policies. She's saying the problem is not paying people year-round to distribute their message. These people are complete clowns. And if this is the type of people Kamala was listening to, well, we see why she lost. These folks are dumb and totally out of touch with reality.
And I know Jen O'Malley Dillon, she was the chair of the Unity Reform Commission I was on. She knows those lessons very well. She was part of the report that we issued to the DNC members that they voted for, but the DNC did not enact them. The DNC chairs. And why is that? And this is where it gets harsh. Those consultants you just mentioned are the ones who make all the money off of these contracts in the presidential races, which do not go to state parties.
So I want to have Roma jump in on this. Give her perspective on what we're talking about here.
Yeah, I mean, respectfully, Kamala Harris did not have just a little over 100 days to run for president. She had 4 years as the vice president to support Joe Biden as president. And she said it herself on The View, famously, we ran the ads, that she would not have done a single thing differently. With that said, the American people polled were still saying that they have no idea where she stands on any particular issue that was important to them going into the polls. She flip-flopped back and forth on every single policy under the sun, and that didn't help her either. I mean, Kamala Harris is her own worst surrogate, and meanwhile, President Trump is his own best surrogate. We're seeing today he's made history already before even becoming president and taking the White House and going into the Oval Office. He's making deals with our great ally, Mexico, and we're making progress on closing the southern border. So, I mean,
you mentioned
the
something really
excuses from the
interesting,
Democrats
Roma.
are not going to stop here.
these people won't learn their lesson. Look, the lady raised not $1 billion, but nearly $1.5 billion and still ended up $20 million in debt. Then she still got these political ops in the DNC saying the answer to solve the problem of their obvious failure is to pay workers more money. Just like how Angela Wright was crying about them needing to give black political sellouts more money. No, the problem is actually listening. They know exactly what the people want. But instead of giving the people what they want to tell us what we should want. Nah, it doesn't work like that. You're the public servant. You work for us. And you have black women who voted for these people 92%, and these folks did nothing for the black community at large. I see some of them literally jumping for joy for fake black tokens getting jobs. When we all know these sellouts, they don't do anything for black people once they get the job. It's all one big finesse. Let's go ahead and get the conversation started. Tell me what you think about this below. Shout out to everybody contributing to the channel. One time for Charles H, Emmett, Mike G, and I can't forget about my sister Starlet. I definitely appreciate all of you. If you want to show your support for the channel too, you have to use PayPal for now. The link is below. Ladies, fellas, want a balanced analysis, want the truth from a woman's perspective? Then you're going to want to subscribe to this channel and don't forget to like and share.